Federal workers like IT specialists, program analysts, and border agents are getting slammed by a series of new bills. This is going to remove their rights, shrink their agencies, and expose the workforce to more political pressure. Why should you care? How will it impact you? Let's get into it. A House committee just advanced the Reorganizing Government Act of 2025, which is H.R. 1295 in a tight vote. This thing is a game changer. It resurrects a presidential power from back in the old days. So the way that it works is the White House proposes whatever changes they want made in that agency, whether that's cutting it up or getting rid of it, and Congress has 90 days to vote yes or no. And from the Republican perspective, this is a wonderful thing because there is no supermajority. You can get this done with a simple majority. So no filibuster can be used. So the Republicans have the votes in order to vote yes on pretty much any and all changes the White House proposes. Here's the history. Between 1932 and 1984, presidents have used this over 100 times to create stuff like the EPA and FEMA. It ended in 1984, but this bill brings it back until December of next year, December 2026, and it makes it even stronger. Because in the past, you couldn't really impact larger agencies, and you couldn't touch the independent agencies. But for this one, the president's going to have all the authority, all the control to do whatever he would like, to modify it or to cut it. The bill even lists goals like cutting federal workers and removing unnecessary rules and operations that do not serve the American public's interests. So who decides the public's interest? Well, the Republicans decide because they have a majority. And a lot of people, a lot of Republicans on this committee, they're excited. Some say that this upgrades government and gives Congress a say. But Democrats are sounding the alarm, saying that this is a desperate move to justify the mass firings, the agency closures that were previously done. Federal judges said that they were illegal. So now this is the next move in the strategy. So is this bill a fix? Does it make things more efficient, or is it essentially a power grab? The same committee pushed through 3 other bills that have a lot of federal workers nervous. Let's go through them. First, we have the Protecting Taxpayers' Wallets Act, H.R. 1210. This one charges the unions a fee when they're using office space or when a federal worker is on union business. So this was essentially established in 1978 where unions were allowed to use office space. Unions were allowed to do union activities even though they were getting paid salary from the federal government. The Republicans have always hated this setup. They dislike unions in general. The intent of this bill would be to decrease the money that the unions have at their disposal. Next, there's the Preserving Presidential Management Authority Act, H.R. 2249. This would allow the president to rip up any union, any collective bargaining agreement that conflicts with an executive order. We saw this recently with the Social Security Administration. They had a telework deal locked into 2029. That went against an executive order, so President Trump pretty much directed the leadership there to rip it up. So this would codify it. This would make it law. So it's no longer speculation. If a union agreement goes against what the president says, well, it's no longer an agreement. Then there's the Paycheck Protection Act, H.R. 2174. This one here bans agencies from automatically deducting the union dues from their federal employees. So unions have to represent everyone regardless if you're paying or not, but some estimates show over 800,000 people are actually paying. And it was made simple because it come out of your check automatically. That would stop with this. Now, agencies could still deduct gym fees and other fees, just not union fees. And this was voted in the committee across party lines. But the thing with this is they tried to make an exception when it comes to the Border Patrol Union. But that didn't work. Now, obviously, the head of the largest federal union, they're not happy with this. Before the vote, they released a statement. Essentially, it says, "This is a disaster. The administration and Elon Musk's Doge's crew are already trashing agencies like USAID and education illegally. Do not give them more power." They're also mad because this is really focusing on federal employees. That is who is under the spotlight right now, and it ignores the government contractor. If you're not aware of it, there are 2 million federal employees throughout the country, throughout the world. The federal workforce is roughly 2.1 million. However, the contractors make up over 4 million. So they're double the size of the federal workforce. They're more of the invisible, silent workforce, even though they still take taxpayer money. In order to function, in order to operate and do things, they require a lot of taxpayer money. But they're not under the spotlight. Why? Well, maybe because they represent the private sector. They represent companies that are out for profit. So they're okay right now in this political environment. They're okay. Heck, in any political environment, it seems like the contractors are okay because they have been growing by a lot. It was in 1990, they were at 1 million. They've quadrupled over the last 35 years or so. Do you know the last time the federal government was at 2.1 million? That was in 1971 under President Nixon. And that president happened to be a Republican. But the contractors have exploded in growth since then. But you will not see any tweets on X or any social media post with Elon Musk holding a chainsaw talking about we need to cut Leidos. He won't talk about that. Or Booz Allen Hamilton. He won't talk about that. But they will steadily fixate and focus on the federal worker. Republicans do not mention Elon Musk very much unless it's to praise them, but the Democrats, they have a lot to say about him. They back two resolutions, H 186 and 187, to dig into Doge's highly conflicted moves. So what has Doge been doing? They've been doing a lot of cuts. They've been saving a lot of taxpayer money. But they're struggling to walk a very fine line between transparency and being secretive. So they have Doge.gov. That's a website you can go on. You can see every agency that's been impacted. They tell you when they've closed offices, when leases have been canceled, who's in the top 10 leaderboard for the most cuts, and they try to keep the public updated through that website. But as far as how they reached the decision, what type of access do they have? What is the algorithm that they're using? What is the decision-making process that they're using? A lot of that's not being revealed to the public. A lot of that's behind the curtains. And what we have seen recently are courts and judges coming after Doge, trying to put a stop to some of their data that they're able to access, trying to put a stop to some of their actions. And if the courts keep ruling against them, then why would you push HR 1295? Maybe it's less about efficiency and more about control. So where's this headed? HR 1295 needs 60 votes in the Senate. Most of the Democrats, they seemed united against it. So it might not go through, but it could still go through. What happens if it goes through? If it goes through, you're going to see a lot more chaos in federal agencies. You're going to see a lot more cuts. You're going to see a lot more people getting terminated. And it's going to come down to the courts. It's going to come down to the Supreme Court a lot of the times. The federal employee, they'll be on the sideline. They'll be in limbo, wondering what's going on. Their telework is already cut. The stability and security of their job is already cut. They're left wondering, are they getting fired this week or next week? And if they do get fired, will they get rehired? Because at this particular point, every option is on the table. Nothing is beyond the realm of possibility. The big question is efficiency or overreach. If these bills do pass, we will see a leaner government. It's not going to be 2.1 million for very long. It might go down to 1.5 million, 1.3 million. And to supplement the workforce, the contractors are going to grow. 4 million, you thought that was large? It's not going to be large. They're going to grow it. Could it be 5? What about 6? What about 7 million? These are private sector jobs. Why not? Let's increase that 7 million and drop the federal worker down to 1.5 million or just around 1 million. And how that benefits the government? Well, we don't have to pay pensions to all these people. They can do somewhat similar work, but when we're done with them, we can just fire them. We can just kick them to the curb. We can forget about them. We don't owe them anything. That means a federal workforce that's overworked, underpaid, and outsourced to the max. Speaking of cuts, the president just signed a memo not too long ago that gives more authority to OPM. If you don't know, OPM is like the HR of the federal government. So they're now going to have the authority to fire. They can literally tap your boss on the shoulder and say, hey, I want that federal employee fired. I want him out of here. And they have to comply within 5 days. It's all in the memo. If you want to know more about that, check this video out next. Stay updated by signing up to the free newsletter down below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.